Welcome to the second hour of the show with no name for January 15th, 2018.
18th.
January
18th.
18th already. Can't be the 18th already. I got bills to pay on the 15th.
Well,
Better get postmarked by midnight.
2013. That's right?
Yeah.
Yep, you got the right year.
I'm Bob Going with Jim Nikosha and Gavin Murdoch. If I look a little tired, it's because Uncle Si and I were up watching film noir movies on TCM last night. I got to tell you, I enjoy the genre very much, and there are a lot of those film noir movies out there that I've never seen. And they were showing a couple of them last night. They were excellent, just in the setup and the delivery. Dick Powell did an amazing career switch. You know, in the 30s, he was the song and dance man. He was in all the Busby Berkeley musicals, Ruby Keeler and Dick Powell and Joan Blondell and all that stuff, and did a lot of music. Then in the late 40s, he becomes a director and a producer, and starts doing. You know, he plays Philip Marlowe in. I forget whether it was Farewell My Lovely or Murder My Sweet. It was the same thing, but they changed the title from the original story. And then he did a host of these film noir things over the next few years. Then he did the Dick Powell Theater on the golden age of television, and it just played serious stuff from that point on. And yet, beneath the surface, there was always that little imp of Dick Powell that would occasionally pop through. The guy was immensely talented, and he married June Allison, which I thought was really cool.
Good move.
Yeah. Nice perky trophy wife. Yeah. Then he died young, I guess. Didn't he die of cancer fairly young?
I don't remember.
Yeah. Anyway, you know, it's interesting watching those early 50s. One last night took place in Los Angeles, and everything there looks familiar because you've seen these backdrops 1,000 times. There's always. I remember the one time I was in that area. I was riding a bus, and I remember looking up and seeing the Daily Planet building from Superman, and it pops up. It pops up in that movie last night, kind of in the distant background. And then there's a scene they're shooting that's supposed to be a trailer park, okay, a really cheap, sleazy trailer park, and it's set on top of a hill, and they're out in the yard on lounge chairs, very cheaply made movies, and you can see this very familiar backdrop down into the valley beyond them. So there's no way this cheap trailer park is going to have this kind of view. But I recognize a view from 100 other movies, and among other things, it's exactly the same view as that Harold Lloyd movie where he's climbing the outside of the skyscraper and hanging from the clock and all that stuff. You know?
That's the same one. Yeah.
Same scene. That's how they filmed it. That they had the illusion that he was 20 stories up, because they were on the hill and the rest of the city was down below in that valley. Same shot, only now it's a sleazy trailer park. I loved it. So, you know, before we get into the serious stuff, Mantiteo is...
Did he come out with something today?
Well, you saw what... You know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, I know what he's talking about.
The fake girlfriend. There seems to be no question that he was in on this, and what the motive could be is beyond imagination.
Yeah, I can't get a grasp on this. You know, why?
How do you fall in love with somebody?
Look, the original story is they met. There's this elaborate backstory where they met after the Stanford game and blah blah blah. She came to visit him in Hawaii.
Yeah, his dad met her
and all that and all this stuff. And then she's in the car accident, and then she dies of leukemia within 24 hours of his grandmother died. And depending on which story you read, she either died before the grandmother. Well, first she dies before the grandmother, and then her last message is condolences on the death of the grandmother. So internally, it never made sense, right? and the flowers going back, and they would stay awake at night with the phone open, and they would talk, and he'd fall asleep, and they'd leave the line open while she was dying, and this whole elaborate and then of course she dies just before the big Michigan game, and he doesn't go to the funeral because she wants him to play, and
win one for the Gipper,
and then he goes out and has the best game of his career, and of course in fact his grandma, as far as I know, I don't know if anybody's really examined this, but the grandmother really did die on that.
She did.
So you can.
But what is the purpose of it? What was
Holy
the purpose
moly!
Of
I mean,
hoax?
Is this the age we live in with online and my face and your face and Skype and
according to today's paper, I think it was today's paper, this is going to affect his draft.
Oh, of course it is.
NFL. Nobody wants him.
Yeah, but on the other hand, it also affected where he stood in the Heisman. Didn't he finish second in the voting?
He did. Yeah, he did.
In the Heisman
Now,
voting.
did they? I saw someplace last night they were talking to the girl who may have been the original.
Oh well, they ran because they started showing photographs of this girl, and the girl all of a sudden discovers that her picture is on television,
right? And she knows nothing
because they were doing some background for the big game on one of the Sunday sports shows, and showing her picture and she's watching this show and sees that it's
me.
I'm the dead girl.
You know,
but it's what's so bizarre. Sports Illustrated, ESPN, AP, none of these people did the obvious background checks, such as find this girl's obituary online, what you can find out about her. It's one of the heartbreaking stories of the year, and they all just took it at face value. Nobody could find, and nobody bothered to look for this terrible traffic accident she was supposed to have been in. And
yeah, I read something in the paper that they couldn't find an obituary for the particular day that they said that she died. Nobody could find it
because they didn't look for it until this story came out. Yeah.
All right, now explain to me something. Where did they get this term, catfish, whatever?
I don't know what you're talking about.
Well, they're saying that this is a catfish story or whatever in the paper, right? You hear?
Yeah. They interviewed a guy who has this site called Catfish, and what it is.
Okay.
It's a thing of hoaxes, basically.
Oh, okay.
And we gotchas and stuff.
Right.
And then he said that's what this appears to be. It was just all a ruse from the get-go. You know.
It was so elaborate.
It was.
I know.
But you know what? You make it elaborate, guess what happens? A thread comes out, and another thread comes out, and pretty soon.
Now, his written statement that he put out to the press is also internally inconsistent, because it says he found out on December 6th that the whole thing was a hoax. On December 6th, okay? Now, mind you, this is after the season's over and before the big game.
Yeah.
And that he reports it to Notre Dame on December 26th that I've been punked, and somebody set this up, and we had this online relationship, and excuse me, wait a minute, this is not the way the story played out. Did he ever deny the Sports Illustrated or ESPN story that he had met the girl and that she'd spent time with him in Hawaii or any of that stuff? No, he never did that. And all of a sudden on December 6th he finds out that this girlfriend, his fiance, never existed. Excuse me?
Your fiance didn't exist?
All right.
And you didn't go to a funeral?
So now on December 8th and December 10th, he's still making statements to the press saying, yeah, I lost my girlfriend and made this.
You didn't go to the funeral?
It may account for the way he didn't play in the big game.
Yeah.
Because it was all over at that point, and the team knew at that point.
The school knew.
But can you imagine?
But the school did an investigation. Now they interviewed Lou Holtz last night on what program? One of the sports channels had Lou Holtz on, and they were talking, what a quality place Notre Dame is. When this came about, Notre Dame did this investigation. They sent private detective out to get to the root of this, and that Notre Dame certainly wouldn't cover anything up. Notre Dame.
Then why didn't they announce it before the big game?
Well, he didn't have an answer for that.
By the way, Charlie Crable had the line of the century yesterday. He said Brent Musburger still thinks Manti Te'o's fiance is hot.
Oh, that's wonderful. That's wonderful.
I replied that that went instantly into my permanent file of things I wish I had said. Isn't that tremendous?
That's great.
Oh, jeez. Oh,
Wow.
oh, man.
Yeah. Yeah. So
That's at least the second one, tremendous one he's come up with in the last 6 months. So
no.
the other one was when Disney bought out Lucasfilms. He said their first collaborative effort is going to be Song of the Sith. Oh, Charlie.
Sometimes he's got them.
You're all right. You got it. You got it. And I'm wondering if Charlie's so talented with these bon mots that I'm wondering where he finds the time to just come up with this stuff. And I'm thinking maybe he's like that executive that was just exposed. I forget who he was working for. He was making 6 figures a year, and he was paying some guy in China a fifth of his salary, like $20,000 something a year, to do his job for him. So this guy in China is doing all his program. I think he was a programmer, and he's doing. And they got, the company got suspicious when they thought they were getting.
They were getting it from
they thought that China was breaching their system because this guy from China was going through this guy's computer to file his stuff. So the guy did nothing but play games all day and outsourced his job completely.
He's just following suit with everybody else.
Well, it's.
Boy, he's got some fur.
I say this guy has the makings of a great executive.
That's right.
It's hard to find fault with. What did he do wrong?
Did the work get done?
The work was excellent. They said his work was terrific.
Yeah, that's why they were.
The work got done. So what if you paid somebody else to do it?
Good bosses do that with their secretaries all the time.
So now, I'm sure the company has figured out that they can outsource his job themselves, but. I'm sorry. I think this guy showed a great deal of initiative.
That's right.
I think it's spectacular. They make a great,
Should have got promotion. He knew what to do.
Great Tom Hanks movie or something. Speaking of, no, I mean you can't have Tom Hanks because you got to have somebody who's. You'd have to have like Tom Cruise that you could picture doing a fraud.
Yeah.
You can't picture Tom Hanks being involved with a fraud. He'd be the guy in China actually doing the work. So then you got. Tell me, do you think anybody really cares what Lance Armstrong confessed to on Oprah?
Give me a break.
I don't know if people would believe him, whatever he says. Yeah. But I'll tell you what. I
can't believe he didn't get well paid to make that confession.
No, I think he is related to Fred Astaire because he danced really, really good. She tried to pin him down a couple times on things, and he didn't give the answer. He got around, So you watched it? Huh? I watched the highlights.
Really?
Yeah.
I didn't see it all.
I read the highlights. Yeah.
Well, apparently he showed like no remorse other than being caught.
Oh, they were talking to who's the girl? One of the girls that one of the wives of one of his former teammates that he had blasted before, and she said you could just see how cold he was, on there. I mean, there's no sincerity what he had to say. He, she asked him, about doping. He said, well, before 2005, yeah, but after that I never doped. Absolutely, I did not after 2005.
Oh, what utter nonsense!
In
other words, the stuff he got caught with, he's admitting to, but the stuff he didn't get caught with, he's not admitting to.
That's
and that he got better. That he didn't need the doping after he got too old to compete.
Tell you what he said. Tell you what he said.
Oh well, I don't care. You know what? The guy's a fraud. We know he's a fraud. He's already been stripped of all his stuff.
Yeah, he lost his bronze medal the other day.
He, you know,
I guess somebody's is Nike suing him or somebody suing him?
Somebody, one of the sponsors wants their money back. Yeah.
How are they going to get it?
Well, I don't know. Well,
has he got it?
He said he's worth $100 and some million bucks, so he may.
Well,
they'll get some of that back.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think he threw away the money that he was getting on all those endorsements. But
no, but if it was me, I sure as hell would hide it before I made these statements.
Well, that was the whole plot of that Dick Powell movie last night. Is who hid the money?
Yeah,
and how do we get it back? How do we get it back? Wow.
Now that's going to be on again tonight too, isn't it? A two-parter. I thought.
Well, I don't know.
I thought it was in two parts. Maybe I'm wrong, but I thought when I read in the Post.
It was a guest programmer who is like the president of the Film Noir Society or something. So it was just a great selection. I wish I'd been able to stay up all night. I wish I had.
No.
I wish I hadn't been so tired that I didn't tape the ones I didn't see.
No. Armstrong is a two-parter.
Oh, Armstrong's
not a movie. I think it's 2 nights the interviews cover.
Well, then I really don't care. Okay. Speaking of two-parters, though, last night on the History Channel, you saw noted presidential historian David Petrusha, and the History Channel's doing a retrospective on the presidents leading up to the inauguration on Monday.
Really? Monday is the day, huh?
Yeah, I mean, this is like the 4th time in American history that the real inauguration day has taken place on a Sunday. And the tradition started, I think, with Zachary Taylor, is that no, it's not appropriate to be sworn in and have all the festivities on Sunday. Sunday's the Lord's Day, so they put it off till Monday. In fact, there was, I remember there is some debate as to whether someone should be called the president in between who was it? Was it Millard Fillmore? Was before Zachary Taylor? No, Taylor and Fillmore were together. Was Harrison Tyler? Maybe was there somebody between Tyler and?
Tippecanoe and Tyler too. No, Harrison and Tyler. Yeah, because Harrison is the president, Tyler was the vice president. Harrison died, Tyler took over. Right.
So now Tyler leaves office on, in those days, midnight on March the 3rd, or noon on March the 4th. And am I missing some? Was there somebody in between them?
Harrison, Tyler.
Oh yeah, Polk. Polk was in between, right? Yeah, because Polk, because Taylor didn't come in until after the Mexican War.
Yeah, because right.
So it must have been Polk left office, and then Taylor took his place. Whatever the succession was in those days, I don't think it was the Speaker of the House. It may have been Secretary of State.
So you got 12 hours in between.
Right, the 12 hours in between. Or actually 24 hours in between. Somebody technically was president who wasn't either, because unlike subsequent presidents, Taylor didn't even take a pro forma oath on the Sunday. Now Obama's doing that. He is he'll be having a small ceremony on Sunday that no one's invited to. I guess he didn't even invite the press to it, and then having the formal inauguration on Monday. Mm. But anyway, I guess nothing happened. Nothing happened in that 24-hour period, so
there's no constitutional controversy. Yeah.
Be interesting.
But it was. I watched part of it live. The first broadcast last night, which went from Roosevelt up through Wilson, and it was. I thought it was really well done. And then I'd been watching part of it when they were doing. Jackson from the earlier, that was on tape, I was watching that. And, you know, they said something very interesting. I said, I'm going to remember it for the show tomorrow because I think it's very appropriate for today that Jackson, who led to the economic crisis in 1837, had absolutely no concept of economics. And I was thinking, gee, history does repeat itself.
Oh, yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
Because Obama has no concept of economics either.
No.
Everything that Jackson tried to do for the common man, in truth, turned out to be detrimental to the common man with the National Bank, and how business up and down the East Coast went out because the money was not available. And I said, just, and
Jackson was an incredibly dynamic leader from the get-go. But he was a strange guy.
He was. He was. He vetoed more legislation than all the presidents up to that time combined.
Yeah.
He vetoed 12 pieces of legislation. He was the one that
threatened to hang John C. Calhoun.
Not that there's anything wrong with that.
Not that there's anything wrong with that. But he was right about that. Most of the Democrats of the time period were Southern secessionists and nullificators and all that stuff. Well, once Jackson becomes president, he wouldn't. When Calhoun threatens secession, he threatens to have him arrested for treason and hanged.
They mentioned on there.
He did keep the Union together at a rough point.
That Jackson was the one who began to change the presidency from one of 3 equal parts to 1 and 2 other parts. Meaning that
he ignored an order of the Supreme Court.
Absolutely, he says let them move.
Let Marshall enforce it, or whoever it was.
Yeah. Well.
So I mean, he was a dangerous man in many respects. Now he was a very, he comes from a strange background because he had like no formal education, but ends up being a lawyer and then a general and all that. Not too many people recall this, but he was elected to the Congress at a very young age. I think he was 28 years old when Washington was leaving office. Okay, and so that'd be 1786, right?
Washington.
No. 96, I mean.
Yes.
Is when Adams was elected. And I think he came in on the Congress that was elected in 1796. So he is in office. Remember, the Congress takes office in those days a couple months before the president.
They get a jump. They get a head start.
So the inauguration day is March 4th, but the Congress meets in January. And as George Washington, the father of his country, is once again giving up the power to go back to Mount Vernon, the Congress of the United States presents a resolution thanking him for his service to his country. There are something like 11 no votes, one of whom is Andrew Jackson.
One of the other things that was...
Can you imagine voting no on a resolution?
Thank you.
Even if it wasn't, even if it was Barack Obama, a resolution thanking you for your service to your country, I wouldn't vote for that.
As long as he's on his way out.
I mean, yeah.
They made note of a couple of things throughout the series. One, that it was, Adams, because Adams was only a one-term president, that people were concerned what was actually going to happen now that Adams didn't win the election. Was he actually going to step away and give up power and let the next person come in? Because that was a concept that had never been done any place in history before.
Right.
That somebody, willingly gives up an office because of a rule of law.
And of course, part of the reason there was a controversy about it at all, or discussion about it all, is because the Jeffersonians had so smeared the guy by making him an alleged monarchist and all this stuff, which was total baloney. I mean, if there was a man of the people, it was John Adams, whereas Jefferson was the patrician landholder.
Yeah.
And Adams, I mean, you can read Adams' diaries and you can see he had no thought on the subject of not leaving office.
And you could also see how politicized everything had become during that just that few years from the end of the revolution up to that point, because all these guys had basically worked very cooperatively together to form this thing, and now you've got this tremendous amount of animosity that arose between them regarding some of the particular views they had in actually running a country that, you know, I don't think you could have envisioned at the time when they're putting all this thing together. Oh, it was vicious, it was petty.
And I blame Jefferson for most of it. He's the one who actually started the party system. The calumnies that went out against Adams and Alexander Hamilton, for example, were just awful. And you know, Jefferson wanted Hamilton arrested and all this stuff. And then you know, the first thing he does when he takes office, he has the Secretary of Treasury go over Hamilton's books, and guess what? All the stuff they'd been saying about him was false. And they ultimately, when it came to economic matters, became Hamiltonians.
They recognized that was the way to go. The other thing that came up in that segment, and then the segment when they're talking about Roosevelt and Wilson, was how, in many respects, second-term presidents are abject failures compared to their first 4 years in office. How as lame ducks, all the things that they had accomplished and were going to be working on in second term really never pan out, because they don't have the position any longer to force some of the things, good or bad.
Yeah, it's an amazing thing, but it basically holds true continuously.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. You know, and I guess you have to have a second term, otherwise every first term would be the same way. Would be the same way, absolutely.
Right.
You know, and Roosevelt felt that his, you know, 2 years in office when he assumed after McKinley was was killed was really just as didn't really count. So he got a lot done, but when he tried to come back, you know, after being out after serving his 2 terms, it never panned out, because the dynamics of the country changed, the dynamics of the administration had changed, and it didn't just work. And I never really thought of that as how many, when it's a lame duck this, lame duck. Well, but when they showed it, you could say, wow, what a difference, and how ineffectual most of these guys become in a second term. And that's what really scared me, because I thought the guy we got now was pretty ineffective in his first term. Imagine how bad, what job of screwing things up.
I pray that he's ineffective in his second term.
There may be nothing to salvage, though.
No, but I think the best we can hope for is, you know, like the original lyrics to "Have Yourself a Merry Little Christmas." Till then, we'll just have to muddle through somehow.
Yeah, well, I just hate to think of the damage that can be caused by this guy with his fiat, and he's just so arrogant in everything that he does and how he does it and how he talks. You know, if Reagan was the great communicator, this guy is an antithesis of anything remotely related to that.
Yeah.
He really isn't.
Yeah. Yeah.
He for someone who, you know, in some respects, who says, I'm a man of the people, he has no concept what the people need and what people are doing.
No.
You know, he's a wolf in sheep's clothing. Ba ba.
Ba. That's all I have to say. So, yeah, go ahead.
That carries into our local administration. The same thing. Everything she does is things that the people don't want.
In case you want to watch these shows backwards.
Yeah.
Now, Petruccia was on. He's on again tonight, I think, discussing Harding and Coolidge.
Yeah, I believe he will be. Yeah.
And I don't know where they go beyond that. He's really good at these headshots. He's been doing it for years.
He is, and he was very, you know, and I'm sure the interviews they do with these guys is much more extensive than what they show in there.
Oh, sure, because they're doing it in really short clips.
Yeah, and they bring a whole lot of different people in, and each president to to talk about them and to give their perspective on them. And you know, he looks good, because even the one I was paying attention, I was waiting for him to come on. And he came on, and the one time they show him on this angle, the next time he comes on, they're showing from that angle. I'm
really?
thinking, you know, yeah, it wasn't just the same shot each time that he was on. This one guy though, I think the guy's name was Brennan. He's from University of Texas at Austin. He has been on just about every segment that I've seen. You know, and some of these other guys are just coming in on this particular president or this issue of the president. But I think it's a well done show, and I think it would serve our young people to have their history teachers.
It gets the issues in, but unlike a lot of these things you see on the History Channel, where they just repeat the same thing over and over and show the same shots, and an hour show amounts to about 5 minutes worth of material.
Yeah.
This is really pouring it on, and it's going boom, 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 clip, 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 clip. Yeah. Very, very well edited. I saw the Washington segment. That's the only one I've seen, but I was very, very impressed with it. And obviously, they can't cover everything there is to cover, but the fact that they're giving you such a broad, detailed overview is quite good. And then you get you interested in looking into the, at least, of course, I'm always interested in that stuff.
And the other comparison was the number of executive orders that Roosevelt signed.
Teddy?
Teddy, which is also something that is happening on an hourly basis down in Washington now. You know, I can't get it through Congress, I just do an executive order. You know, and Roosevelt took a lot of criticism for that when he was in office, but later on people said, you know, because most of it, I forget what he had, it was over 1,000 that he signed, and most of them were related to the environment, to the establishment of the parks, and the cut down on logging in these national parks, and he just kept appropriating land after land, and people are, you know, said, well, geez, yeah, look at, you know, he saved the Grand Canyon, you know, all these national parks exist simply because of him. So maybe sometimes the executive order can be used in a very positive manner, but you know, not to circumvent the same possibility that would come out of Congress if you allow them to.
I've done a lot of studying of Teddy Roosevelt, read in a number of the biographies, particularly Morris's in recent years. His trilogy is excellent, and I've actually talked to Morris about Roosevelt, who doesn't quite grasp him any better than anybody else does in certain respects. I've read in the last couple of years just about everything, every book that Teddy Roosevelt has written. And he's just an amazing guy. I mean, I have nothing but admiration for him. His depth of knowledge on numerous subjects is unbelievable.
He's a Renaissance man.
He's a true Renaissance man. He would be. There was a time when he was made a deputy sheriff in charge of a posse chasing down some cattle rustlers out west, and they chased this guy for a couple of weeks before capturing him. And I don't remember whether they strung him up or just turned him over to the law. I forget. I think they turned him over to the law. But in the process of doing this, of this long chase, you know, where they're camping out by the campfire and then going on the next day downriver and all this. He brings along to read at night Thucydides in the original Greek. It's histories, you know. But that's the kind of guy. He goes on these African safaris, and he brings 200 books with him to read. He was a self-taught man, among other things. I mean, he had a fine education, went to Harvard and all that, But as a teenager, he begins studying the fauna of the Adirondacks and writes, by the time he's 17, what's still considered the definitive natural history book on the Adirondacks. 17 years old. He's barely like 22 or 23 when he decides to write the naval history of the War of 1812, of which he knows absolutely nothing. He knows nothing about how ships operate, how they match up in battle, and he learns all this stuff, and he studies all the original sources. And he ends up writing such a fantastic piece of naval history that it's now studied on both sides of the Atlantic.
And who's the one who really created the modern American Navy?
Theodore Roosevelt. He becomes
Roosevelt.
Assistant Secretary of the Navy and in effect, the real Secretary of the Navy, because he keeps sending the Secretary home while he conducts all the business.
You know, and
now, take the summer off. I'll take care of things in Washington.
And the fact, you know, these expeditions and all these manly things he did as an adult. Remember, he was a sickly child.
Yeah.
You know,
a very sickly
and he
child.
turned himself into a man's man. And they were saying on the program, you know, he never missed an opportunity to bring his family into things in these photographs, and how there's a direct link between him and John Kennedy, because Kennedy did the same thing with his kids.
Right.
And Roosevelt did that. You know, Roosevelt set time every day at 4 o'clock to play with his kids.
Right.
Played hide and seek in the White House.
Yeah.
You know, with his kids. So
I mean, you forget how young he was. He was 42 when he became president.
Yeah. Yeah, he was, but he had. He was the right, and then they said he was the right man at the right time. He was the president that was needed to take us from the 19th to the 20th century.
That may be true, but he also, you know, in a way set some bad precedents that in his case, using the presidential power, he was such a straightforward and honest man in every respect that he only used the power for the public good. And that did not necessarily follow.
Set well with.
No, it didn't follow with the people who followed him who exercised the same kind of powers. Anyway, all my talk about what an educated man, how incredibly good he was at learning stuff quick, all that. His history of the West, fantastic stuff. I'll go to the original sources. There were two areas where he seemed to have virtually no interest. And one of these is constitutional law, and the other is economics. He really seemed to. Morris says in one of his asides, I think in the second book, that in some respects, pardon the expression, but that Roosevelt was an economic retard. Now, when you're talking about a guy who's as brilliant as Roosevelt was, it's fascinating that none of his writings seem to express any interest in those two subjects, and there's no explanation for it. I mean, we're talking about subjects that were critical to his presidency.
Yeah, because one of his goals, wasn't he the trust buster?
He was the trust buster. Yeah.
And but the only trust they said that he didn't bust up was steel, because he saw that steel was the
built battleships.
Built battleships, and it needed to be exploited for the benefit, for the advancement of the United States. But you're right. He, as a pure economist, but he'd kind of come all along at a period that maybe because he didn't know a lot, he didn't try to do a lot, and so bad things didn't happen, because sometimes a little knowledge is dangerous.
Right.
You know?
His presidency is actually pretty conservative. His subsequent dallying with the Progressive Party and some of the kind of crazy socialist things he said during his subsequent campaign bear no relation to how he governed. He was, I mean, he really, he challenged J.P. Morgan and some things like that, and he did bust some trusts. But he did it in a very conservative way, and in a way, even when he takes over the Progressive Party, he's putting a very conservative face on a radical movement, and he kept that party from being too extreme. Anyway, he was a marvelous guy and a fascinating character, and you can argue whether he may have harmed the country in some respects, but he certainly did some great things for the country. No doubt about it. And everything he did was in his perception of the public interest. Fantastic person, personally. Anyway, there we are. I wonder if David is. I don't know if David is doing the Truman or not. He may.
I don't know.
I'm not sure he knows.
I don't know what is that on. I think tonight finishes up, because they've been doing like 2 parts a night.
Okay.
You know, one of the parts is an hour one, and the other part of the next group is 2 hours. So you're getting 3 hours. So and I think they're going to be up. We got through Wilson last night. They're going to be up to, I think they're up to. I think they're doing Roosevelt tonight up to the end. Franklin Roosevelt. I think that's where the next one picks. I didn't see the end of the part with after Wilson. I didn't. I felt.
Oh, do you think they did? They already did Harding and Coolidge?
They may have done.
Well, David says he is on. He is on today. Unless they're just rerunning last night's show.
Well, no, they may be running, but they've got.
So he may very well be doing. He may very well be doing Truman, since he wrote the book. And of course, he wrote the book on Nixon, Johnson, and Kennedy as well. So
he's written quite a few books.
He has.
He knows a lot of words.
He has. He has. I wish I could write books as fast as he does. I'll tell you.
Speaking of writing books fast, are you fast approaching the
end of my book?
End of your book?
Yeah. I was working. I try to work on it every day.
Because remember, Jim, you have a good memory. He said it'd be done the end of this month.
What's today?
18th.
Wow.
Yeah, 2 weeks. And next Friday is an important day because that's the anniversary of the show. It'll be the 2nd anniversary of the show with no name.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Or is it today?
No.
It was the 25th.
It was the 28th for the first one. We did it up on the up on Clisby Avenue at the shop, and that was on my birthday. So I know so many great things happened on that date. So next Friday will be.
Well, wait, January 28th is the Admiral's birthday.
Monday. Is who?
The Admiral's birthday.
Bruce Conner and I share the same birthday.
January 28th.
Wow, I didn't realize that.
So we've been doing this for 2 years now.
Yeah, absolutely.
Wow.
And it's only a couple of shows that we've missed, and we do more shows a year than Leno, I think.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, because technically we do 2 shows a week.
Yeah.
Even though we do them together.
Yeah.
I'm getting them up a lot faster now too. When I first started, it was trying to figure out the technicalities of putting it all together. And before I got this camera, I had to separately do the soundtrack and the video because the video didn't have a plug-in for the microphones. Oh. It was kind of one of those handheld devices.
That's right. Sometimes you were talking and nothing came out.
Nothing came out.
Yeah. So, I would spend hours just synchronizing the soundtrack with the video and then editing it. And then, of course, we were doing it live for a while with that crazy system we had. And then I would have to. Before YouTube made me a producer and allowed me to do long programs, when I could only do 15-minute programs, we had to do it. What I had to do is we would tape the program, and then I would run it on my TV channel and record that simultaneously. Oh man!
See, what? That's the dark ages.
That is the dark. I would spend the better part of the weekend putting those shows together. Now I can do it in a really
length of time to download it. Yeah, absolutely.
I usually have them both up at least by evening. So it's cool. I've enjoyed doing it. I still got to experiment with doing it live again. I think we can do that, but I just haven't experimented with it.
I think the people in Bulgaria would appreciate that, going back to live.
Yeah, I think so, except that when it's live you can't edit it.
We've never said anything bad that you have to edit.
No, I haven't edited anything out in a long time, but occasionally there are things that I think better of. And some people are writing all this stuff down. So that's cool. That's cool. Yeah. You wanted to say something, Jim, about what's going on in the controller's office. Last week we devoted half a show to Mr. Femister's candidacy, and this week the mayor put his name up. And of course, it's not her appointment to make. She doesn't even have a vote on the subject, and it went down 3-2. Now, what's interesting is that the 2 real Democrats voted no, Beekman and Dybus, whereas the fake Democrat, Joe Isabel, who just switched parties, voted yes, as did Gina, and Richie Leggero voted no, whose ward contains the candidate, actually.
when these proposals or proposed resolution comes up, you know, nobody wants to move these resolutions to bring them to the floor.
Right.
And then all of a sudden, well, you know, I want to ask a question, so I'm going to move it. You know, nobody, and then they all vote yes. Nobody wants to move it, but they vote yes for it. I can't understand what's going on there.
Now, did you watch that part of the program?
Yes.
And I was surprised at Valerie Beekman's vote, because she's been closely allied with the mayor, and I understand she talked about it, and but I don't know what it was that she said.
Who, the mayor or
Valerie Beekman?
She didn't say much. She didn't say much. I don't remember what she said. But the mayor went on for probably 3, 4, 5 minutes on why Femister should be the person. And you know, when she talks, she can talk for 5 minutes and not say anything.
Well, she can talk about pear vanilla seltzer, or vanilla pear.
And she just went on and on and on, and she getting to the habit where she says the same things over and over and over, different words,
right,
but the same thing. And
of course, she really had no say in the discussion to begin with if they followed their own rules.
I know.
And
you know what? Excuse me. They put an ad in the paper for a deputy controller.
Right.
They've got one.
Yeah, I know they do.
So what are they going to do? They can't get rid of this girl, can they? Or
well, no, I think this is going to be an additional position, but she won't be deputy controller anymore. She'll just go back to whatever her regular duties are. In other words, she has a position, and she's also deputy controller. Deputy controller can be anybody named by the controller.
By the controller.
Right.
So if you don't have a controller, how can they?
Well, they can't. They actually can't hire anybody to be a deputy controller without a controller to hire them.
That's what I mean.
That's true.
So what's going on over there? I mean.
Well, it hasn't happened yet, so we'll see.
Well, this is one of those.
And they did advertise for it while he was still alive. So this
is one of those Jerry DeCasatis rulings that.
He'll probably say the mayor can make the appointment.
Yeah.
Well, another 2 weeks, you're going to have somebody in there. You got 30 days.
Well,
now,
so what happens in 30 days if she doesn't make the appointment?
She'll make an appointment.
No.
What's she going to do like she did?
Now, can they bring his name back up again?
Well, if one of the persons who voted no changes their mind, then that person can bring his name up again.
But somebody who voted yes can't bring
the
name.
No.
Only if you voted no.
It's dead otherwise. And what's the point if unless they've got the third vote?
Well,
and actually, there are no to answer your question. There are no consequences if you don't fill the position.
No. You know, the charter says that any position that's not filled in 30 days automatically falls to the mayor.
Well, I don't think that in that case it does.
You don't think so?
I don't think so.
That's what I'm saying. If she can, then she can just appoint him after the 30 days.
No, I don't think so.
Well, didn't she do that with corporation counsel?
She can't. She has no. This is one of those situations where she has no appointing authority and no veto power. If, for example, let's suppose that Alderman Nicosia moves out of town, and now there's a vacancy in the 3rd ward, right?
Yeah.
The Common Council can fill that vacancy, right?
Yes.
But if 30 days go by, the mayor doesn't get to appoint the alderman.
No.
The appointing authority is still the Common Council.
Okay.
And that's the way it is in this case. Where there's a vacancy,
the next thing with this position is he moved out of town. He moved out of town. He lives in Niskayuna.
Well, yes, but that becomes an issue.
Not a disqualifier?
Not necessarily a disqualifier. It becomes a matter of interpretation, and it falls into that gray area. Does he live there or doesn't it? What is his residency? All of which is irrelevant if they're not going to vote for him or
well, that's true, but
I don't know. We know any Democrats who are eligible to fill this position?
No, AUB is 18 years old.
18 years old.
Live in the city.
Yeah, there's no qualifications.
I mean, I'd vote for Bill Wills, except he moved out of town. So.
Well, doesn't matter, does it?
Well, I don't believe he maintains his voting residence on Catherine Street anymore.
So that means he really moved out.
Well, his mother lives there, right?
Ooh, I don't know. Well, frankly, I don't even know anything about his mother.
I'm not sure, but I think his mother lives on the same street.
Yeah, but he doesn't live there.
Well, why not? He can live there during the week and live it.
As a matter of fact, he could live
The way the chief and
he could live in the castle during the week. There's plenty of extra rooms.
Yeah.
Oh, I don't know.
Like Schenectady, he lives in the city during
What
the week.
the heck? Yeah.
Weekends he goes home.
Well, if I see him Monday night at soccer, I'll ask him.
I'll bet you. I just thought of somebody that she would want to appoint. Tom Georgia. She wanted him to run. Remember, she wanted him to run the first time.
That was the big rumor when the position was open.
Yeah.
Ooh.
That she was going to appoint him, but I guess Femister was a better deal.
Yeah.
You know, and she made the speech at the council meeting that she's looking for a manager, not somebody who knows finances or knows.
In other words, the person that she wanted 2 weeks before Ron died, which is somebody who meets all these CPA qualifications and everything else, that's no longer relevant.
Well, no, because now it's a different
Well,
position.
by selling it that way, then she may have somebody lined up who thinks he can just manage the office, but actually knowing how to do all the things that people in the office do.
Well, that's what she said, that Femister was a very good manager, that he managed a lot of people. But I did that too on one of the jobs I had.
Yeah, me too. But you're not a Democrat, neither am I.
Well, yeah.
Nor am I.
Well, I could change.
How about Babe?
No, Babe is a
Babe's not.
conservative.
That's right. We voted for Babe.
I did vote for Babe.
Did you
I
vote for
voted
Babe?
I voted
Yeah.
for Babe.
Well, now that we've settled that issue, we got anything else pertinent, or can we close the show? We're a little early today.
I think we're good.
Any news on the Piper front, or?
Piper front. Next Saturday is the 26th. That's Robert Burns' dinner down in Albany. He'll be playing down
Cool.
there.
Bobby Burns.
Yeah, Bobby Burns. He'll be eating some haggis and drinking scotch and playing the pipes.
Was he from
get the
Edinburgh
recipe.
also? Was he?
No,
the
not
recipe.
he's outside
Get the
Edinburgh.
recipe for
haggis.
Yeah.
Oh, I'll get that for you. You know, I
It's illegal in this country,
I
isn't
may
it?
not make it.
Well, I have always understood that haggis was the reason that the Scots moved to America
To get away from
it.
it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but I don't know.
Maybe it's like sofrite. that
You know,
they
I was
can't
at
use.
a what I'll call a Polish wake. It was actually the dinner after the funeral. What some people call the mercy dinner, whatever. And it was in a house. It was at somebody's house, and they, they were serving all the usual, the kielbasa, and I think I was the only non-Pole at this particular event. And I was listening to the Poles speaking with each other, where they were all confessing that none of them really liked kielbasa. But they felt an obligation to not only to serve it, but to eat it, to maintain their identity.
Talking about wakes. I had a neighbor they were Irish, and the old man died, so they had the wake, and I lived next door and I was friends with them, but after the wake and everything, they had a little bit of a dinner, and then they met at his house. And the windows were going, so they made me come over.
Yeah.
So I said, okay, my neighbor, I gotta respect. So they were having one hell of a time. the music was going, the singing, the drinking, and dancing.
Dancing.
No.
You're not a dancer.
I'm not a dancer.
We're thankful.
But after a couple of drinks,
they made me get up there and dance with one of the daughters, and she was as old as I was. But what a time they had!
That's an Irish wake.
It was really great.
Joe Pertel put one together down at the Irish American Club one time. There was nobody dead, but it was an event for the club. It was a traditional Irish wake, and so they had, of course, the Rileys provided the casket and everything, and they had the the clay pipes with big pots of tobacco, so people
Yeah.
could smoke the clay pipes and drink the whiskey. And it was a great time, particularly since there was nobody to mourn over. Did you ever read The Last Hurrah? It was a pretty great movie. John Ford directed, but the book is spectacular. And there's a scene that's in the movie, but there's a whole chapter in the book called Knocko Minahan's Wake. And Knocko Minahan was one of these stooges, and he dies, and it's not long. They're not at the wake very long before you realize that everybody has forgotten about Knocko Minahan altogether. You know, and it is one of the most fantastic pieces of writing. It's absolutely hilarious chapter from end to end, but it's the real Irish wake. I can't say as I've ever been to one that was actually as they did it in the old days, which is unfortunate. But yeah, they do enjoy.
Yeah, this was fantastic. And
How old were you at the time?
oh, it wasn't too many years. Well,
Oh, okay, so it's fairly recent then.
well, it probably within the last 15 years. Maybe
Oh, okay,
20 years,
all right. So it's not when you were a kid,
No. It was-
and you were dancing, yeah?
I danced
Yeah.
the Irish jig. I didn't know what I was doing, but
Yeah. Cross kick back to 3/4, cross kick back to 3/4, cross kick back to 3/4, kick back to 3/4.
yeah, well,
Is that what it is?
I had a couple of
Yeah,
drinks.
that's the jigs. It's
It's a good thing I lived next door.
first jig step,
It's a good thing I lived next door because I had more than.
and then you switch feet.
Couldn't do it. I switched feet.
Yeah,
You won't have to drive home.
by that kick back to 3/4, you end up on the other foot to start the second round. So, yeah, I can do it. I'm not going to do it for the cameras, however.
Not till St. Patty's Day.
I'll have to have plenty of Jamesons to do that. I tell you.
We can arrange that.
Okay. And all right, that about does it. We've solved all the Notre Dame problems and ended with an Irish wake. So
Yeah.
I'm Bob Going with
Full
Jim
circle.
Nikosha. Gavin Murdoch will be back next week for our second anniversary show of the show with no name.
And I'm not Irish.